Hi. Jamie here, doing another video. I don't have a drawing for this one, so you get to see me in real life. I would usually wear sunglasses, but I can't find them, so I just kind of gave up on that. But today I'm talking about this really cool indie musical that I like a lot called Rockabye, which is free here on YouTube. It's really great, you should watch it. But in this video I am going to be complaining about it. It's more of a critique, really, than a complaint. Because I love the show. It's a really great show, and I think it deserves love. But also it has some pretty major issues. I look weird without my glasses. I'm gonna go put my glasses on. I feel like I look more normal now. Also, I can actually see myself, so I'm not gonna be squinting the whole video. This is... I don't know why I didn't start with this. Anyway, so I want to lead with why I like this musical so much. Explaining why I like it will provide context for why I'm looking to critique it. Rockabye is a musical made by the artist Sushi Saucy. It's free here on YouTube. The entire thing is recorded, as well as the official cast album, which is really good. The music is incredible. Everything about this musical, mechanically, works super well. Like, the music is fantastic, lyrics are, most of the time, pretty great, acting is wonderful. In my personal opinion, the staging is also really good because they had very minimal set pieces to work with, because I assume they didn't have much of a budget when making this thing, which is not. Like, if you can make it work on a tight budget, that is a proof of how good you are as a director or manager or whatever, whoever sets up the stage. I don't know. I'm an actor. I don't know any of that shit. The point is, mechanically speaking, the musical is great. I want to make a little compilation of all of some of my favorite moments from the show, so I'll have that here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to join our awards program?
No, kill yourself.
Okay.
Why don't you sing it for me?
What? Now, I'm at work. It would be unprofessional and inappropriate of me to...
I promise I'm not a serial killer or anything. I'm not giving you the address to an abandoned warehouse where I'm going to chop up and sell your body parts.
Sounds legit.
And remember, if at first you don't succeed, change your name, move to Nebraska, lay low for a while, start a farm as a cover, and then try again very discreetly so the government doesn't catch you this time. Alright, you got it. Like, I'd be something like the heartthrob, right?
I don't think that's quite right. Is there an archetype for a self-absorbed lead guitar player in a band?
Oh, there is actually.
First off, fuck you.
Work is my life, perfection is my aim. Slowly but surely I'm building, those around me feel the same.
I know a lot of people haven't seen this show, which is a crime. So let me explain a little bit about what it is. So we start with our main character, Calypso, working their job at a coffee shop. They're a songwriter, and they meet this guy, Bobby, who's the manager of a band, but they don't have a songwriter. So obviously, Calypso gets into the band, joins the band, and Bobby then tasks the band with writing a lullaby to put Azathoth, the ancient, oh fuck, I'm forgetting the word. Lovecraftian horror. Azathoth is an ancient Lovecraftian god who dreams up the world. So keeping him asleep is important, because if he wakes up, or if it wakes up, the world is destroyed. But eventually they succeed, they write the song, they play the song, except when they play the song, instead of staying asleep, Azathoth wakes up and everything is destroyed. And it results in one of the best songs in the show. Actually, two of the best songs in the show. My two favorite songs in the show, Wide Awake and It'll All Be Worth It.
So I'm wide awake.
It's wide awake.
Dark the moon singing at the sea. I'm aware, nothing was a crazy dream. Now I'm wide awake.
It'll All Be Worth It, probably one of the best like original stage musical villain songs in existence. I'm just saying, controversial, but
Have you ever wondered why this world has gone to fucking garbage? Take one good look around and tell me who looks happy. I always knew that I could make this world a better place if I could make it disappear forever.
both very jazzy, fun numbers. Anyway, from there is Act 2. We now follow the band, in this Lovecraftian horror nightmare dimension. They have 1 hour to make their way to Yog-Sothoth and put Azathoth back to sleep. To, restore the universe, not destroy it. They've already done that and they don't want to do it again. So that's kind of the plot. I think it's really interesting, it's unique, it's very LGBTQ plus focused, which is always a plus in my book. Now, there's really only one major complaint that I have, and it's pretty much entirely about Act 2 of the musical. The first act, I have pretty much no complaints about. Like, it's good, it's got good progression. The reason I'm talking about this is because the show is made worse by it, which is unfortunate, because even with this, I still think the show is absolutely incredible. But it does take it down from like an A+ to like a B-. The main problem I have with this show is that from Act 1 to Act 2, our main character switches. I told you at the beginning of this video that the main character is Calypso, which is true until you get to Act 2. Then suddenly, at Act 2, our main character is no longer Calypso. Calypso gets one more solo song in Act 2. They have like, I want to say 3 or 4 in Act 1. And then in Act 2, we get one at the very start, and then the main character is Simon. Now here's the thing. Simon works perfectly fine as a main character. The problem is not that he's poorly written, or that his story is rushed, though it kinda is. Or even that Calypso was poorly written and then Simon suddenly replaces them. Because that also isn't true, because Calypso is also very well written. The problem is that the story changes completely. All through Act 1, we follow Calypso. And everyone else in the band gets a pretty even amount of stage time, except maybe Adel, who is more of a minor character than the others. But in Act 2, Adel gets a song. And I'm blanking on his name, but the other guy in the band also gets a song. Which is, funnily enough, partially a duet with Simon. But from there, Simon has the majority, if not the entirety, on like the last 3 numbers of the show. Simon was a side protagonist up to this point. But during Act 2, the story changes completely. Now Simon is the focus. Now it's all about Simon. And the funny thing is, I can't remember what... I think Simon plays the guitar, and the other guy, whose name I still can't remember, plays the bass. And then Adel's on the drums, and the other girl whose name I also can't remember is on the keys. And Calypso is the... Oh, her name is Marley. They each have their place in the band. And Simon's story is interesting. It's well done, it's just the execution He is also a songwriter, but he has since abandoned songwriting because he was screwed over by a record label who blackmailed his family and took credit for his work, so he vowed to never write another song, pretty much. That's like an interesting plot to me. I think that's very interesting character development that Simon is given, except for the fact that this is not Simon's story. I'm sorry. The musical itself is not... Simon is not the main character. Until suddenly, he is. He isn't, and then suddenly he is. Because when they're in the Nightmare Dimension realm, all of the band members are going kind of crazy. I can't remember what happens to Marley, actually. In Act 2, she basically becomes completely irrelevant. Most of the characters and their arcs are completely irrelevant to focus entirely on Simon. Calypso is basically going crazy because they're trying to stay positive in what is essentially a hopeless situation, and it's this toxic positivity that's making them go cuckoo. Adel also has a wonderful song, Rotting, where they are affected by the color out of space, which is really cool, except we get one song about it and then pretty much almost like no conclusion to that arc. It's one song at the beginning of Act 2, and then at the end of Act 2 they're like, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Rotting from the inside out, you'll be fine. Walk it off. Not really, but you get the idea. The problem that I have with this is the fact that Act 1 and Act 2 feel like two completely different musicals. There's nothing really that makes it cohesive, that makes it feel like we really went from here to here, and this is a natural conclusion to this story. Even though I still think Act 2 for the most part is good, I think Simon could work as the main character if he was the main character from the start. It doesn't feel natural because we focus on Calypso so much for the first act of the show. You go into Act 2 thinking, okay, so Calypso is our lead, Calypso is the leader, and they are going to have struggles, but the band will help them get through that to eventually solve the problem and get everything back to normal. And we do kind of follow that progression, but instead of following that progression with Calypso, we follow it with Simon.
I would like to make a small correction. We in fact do not follow that progression. Simon solves the problem pretty much entirely on his own, which is somehow worse.
For no particular reason. I think I think Sushi Saucy, Jesus, is a really fantastic artist. I think their lyrics are most of the time pretty great. Their music is nice. They're a good writer. They're a good writer. They have a good idea of their characters. They have a solid idea. But here's my theory. I think while they were writing this show, something happened where they had envisioned in their mind what it was going to look like on stage, right? As you do when you're writing a play. And they had envisioned themselves playing Simon and envisioning themselves in that role. It's not a bad thing. I do that all the time with a lot of my characters. Maybe got them a little bit too invested in the character, in the sense that they were then so invested in Simon's arc, and Simon's arc completely, that they accidentally ended up neglecting the other characters. Specifically Calypso. And Calypso's arc never really gets completed. Like, you see them at the end of the Act 1, and they're kind of like, yes, I've written my song, I'm singing it now, I feel good about this. But then, right, like, Wide Awake happens, and Azathoth wakes up, and that kind of sets them back to zero. And then the overwhelming toxic positivity is meant to mask that. That is a good setup for the character arc, I feel like. Because we went through this whole journey, and now we're back to feeling like we're not good enough, and we're masking it with being overly positive, trying to lead the group. And to me, when I have that set up for my main character, how I would solve that is the supporting cast would help the main character overcome that. There would be like a breakdown moment where the toxic positivity mask falls and it all comes crumbling down. Then the supporting cast builds them back up, and they come again back into the light to complete that arc and really feel, like that sense of purpose, that sense of goodness. But we don't ever have that with Calypso. They're masking their feelings with this toxic positivity, and then they're just pushed to the sidelines. They're pushed to the sidelines until Simon comes into the light, and then suddenly they're better. There is a natural progression that it could follow, that I believe it should have followed, but we don't get that. It's just at the end, suddenly everyone is better. What switched? What happened that helped you feel that what changed, right? Like, what happened that changed you? That changed the way you feel about this situation? Simon's arc is not bad. In fact, I think Simon's arc is quite good. It just does not have the time to breathe because he did not get the chance to have the limelight during Act 1 because he wasn't the main character. So the thing with Rockabye is, for me, we have to decide what story we're trying to tell. Because as it stands, it does not work to tell two different stories. It's either we start with Calypso as the main character and we end with Calypso as the main character, or we start with Simon as the main character and end with Simon as the main character. And I think both of those could work. But unfortunately, we have a mishmash of the two that result in something that doesn't work. I still believe that despite this flaw, the show is fantastic. Everyone did a great job. It's well executed, and it did in fact make me emotional the first time I watched it. I just wish we could have seen that arc completed for Calypso, or we could have seen Simon's arc at the start. It's still pretty awesome, despite this major flaw, to me at least. I really am a fan. And this critique comes from a place of love. Bye!